Good morning. It's so nice to see the screen flood with familiar faces. Take a minute to get everybody admitted to the Zoom meeting and then we'll get started. So enjoy the sponsor slides. Okay, it looks like we've got quite a few people in and it's 1 minute after. Maybe we'll go ahead and get started. Jesse, sound good? Okay, good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the virtual Groundhog Day economic forecast. My name is Kristen Craig and I am president of the Terre Haute Chamber of Commerce. Despite not being able to host this event in person, as we have for over 20 years, the Chamber still remains committed to educating the local business community through this event. While 2020 left many of us feeling like we are in Bill Murray's Groundhog Day movie, that doesn't mean we've lost our desire to look forward to the future. Today's conversations about our current economic state and what the future may hold are more important than ever, and we're happy to be able to facilitate the dialogue. First and foremost, I'd like to thank our sponsors who have helped make this event possible for several years. Our longtime sponsor, Terre Haute Savings Bank, who you'll hear more from here in just a minute, and our supporting sponsor, Indiana State University Scott College of Business. I'd especially like to thank Dean Terry Doherty for his contributions in helping plan this year's event. Today's business sponsors are B&G Foods, Brampton Brick, Century 21 Elite, Duke Energy, Garmong Construction Services, Terre Haute Regional Airport, and Union Health. Thank you to all of you for your investment in the Chamber. Before we get today's main program started, I'd like to call your attention to a few important items. In your inbox that you would have received an email from Jessica Cox with the link to today's event, you also received a digital program. Inside is information about each speaker and information on how to keep the conversation going virtually after the event has closed for today. We've changed up the order of speakers just a little, to keep you on your toes in this virtual format. But we've got a great lineup today. I'm very excited about it. Just a few Zoom housekeeping notes, as we've all heard before. Please keep yourself muted. Use the chat box to submit your questions for each speaker. We'll be monitoring that throughout the presentation, and as long as time permits, we'll be able to facilitate a few of those questions at the end. And if we can't, we'll be sure to get your questions forwarded on to the speaker afterward for an email follow-up. I'd now like to welcome Bart Caldwell, the president of Terre Haute Savings Bank, our title sponsor of today's event. Bart?
Thank you, Kristen, and good morning, everyone. On behalf of Terre Haute Savings Bank and the Terre Haute Chamber of Commerce, welcome to the 2021 virtual Groundhog Day economic forecast. As with most other meetings and conferences over the past 11 months or so, our Groundhog Day forecast is presented just a bit differently this year. Although our presentation is different, we still have an outstanding panel of presenters today, led by the person who has his finger on the pulse of the Indiana economy better than anyone, Gary Dick of Inside Indiana Business. We appreciate the work that the Chamber staff has done to make our Groundhog Day event possible, and we're grateful to our panelists who are willing to share their thoughts with us this morning. Again, welcome everyone, and now back to Kristen.
Thank you, Bart. And again, to Terre Haute Savings Bank, your ongoing support has made this event what it is over the years. We'd originally planned to have two familiar faces in the housing market tag team our first presentation, but life had other plans for our speakers. And unfortunately, Brian Conley with Conley Real Estate couldn't join us this morning. But we're very fortunate to have another local expert weigh in on this important subject. Our first speaker, we're very proud to have him as a member of the Terre Haute Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, as well as our executive committee. I'd like to welcome Bernice Hellman, Vice President and co-owner of Coldwell Banker Troy Hellman Realtors in Terre Haute, and also a member of the leadership team for the Indiana Association of Realtors and director for the National Association of Realtors. Bernice, I'll give it to you.
Thanks, Kristen. Good morning, everyone. So this is always a struggle, so I'm going to try to manage my readers and my notes and my Starbucks coffee and hopefully share my screen to get the PowerPoint presentation to you. So bear with me just a minute. I am going to try and share my screen here. All right, can everyone see that? Okay, so I hope you can see my pointer as I go along here. Let me get to the next screen. So Jessica, give me a nod. Can you see my cursor? Okay, all right, very good. So we've been busy at the Indiana Association of Realtors this year. As with many of you, I'm certain our business model had to change, and it had to change really just overnight. So I've entitled my presentation, Good News with a Damper. I wanted to call it The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I think that's probably a little more appropriate. So I want to take a few moments this morning and just explain to you a little bit of what we saw in 2020 and what we think we will see as we begin to navigate 2021. So just right out a year ago at this time, I was installed as the state president for the Indiana Association of Realtors. And while I had many things on my agenda that I'd hoped to complete that year, none of which were a global pandemic that we would have to navigate. That certainly changed the way that we did business. I didn't anticipate being in front of the governor and the governor's staff on a regular basis, trying to make sure that we could keep real estate professionals on the essential services list. As a side note, I would mention that our friends in Michigan were not so lucky, and they were not deemed an essential service, which has had really negative impacts on their entire real estate market. So we're grateful to Governor Holcomb and the working relationship that we maintain with him and his staff. We had to make promises of things that, a year ago, we really didn't know what they were, but virtual showings. So, there's a lot of pressure involved when you sell a house and the buyer's never been in it. So we would literally go through and FaceTime or do a video call to walk the client through the house. We had what we call curbside closings. And again, literally none of us knew what those were. As a real estate professional, we were unable to attend the closing with our client. And the title companies weren't allowing our clients to come into their office to close. So we were doing closings in the car, literally in the parking lot of title companies. So the agent would call in and again FaceTime or do a Zoom call while they're going through the closing. So lots of things that we really just had to pivot on a dime, again, like all of you have had to do with your business models. Our headquarter office for the Indiana Association of Realtors is downtown at the corner of Market and Capitol, right across from the governor's office. That's an $8 million project. It's a brand new building for us. Earlier in the year, we were hit by riots. We spent most of the summer with our windows boarded up. Once we finally got those boards removed and the windows replaced, then we had to make the decisions of whether or not we were going to board up again for both election night and the inauguration. So some issues that we just a year ago were unaccustomed to dealing with and talking through. But we learned a lot in 2020, and I will say for me, the resounding theme was that the need for housing doesn't stop during a global pandemic. The demand was strong, and that home became more important than ever. So in the end, 2020 proved to be a really strong year in the real estate industry, and that's what I wanted to spend some time this morning sharing with you some of our numbers. So first and foremost, I want to share a little bit of bright news. So I was in a conference a few weeks ago with the economist for the National Association of Realtors, Dr. Lawrence Ewan, who is revered in our marketplace. He determined what we called the 10 top markets during and in the post-COVID environment. And you can see that Indianapolis, Carmel, Anderson, Indiana made the list of the top 10. I think that's exciting for us. I think that's exciting for our region, and I want to spend some time talking about that. But some of the criteria that got these markets on this top 10 list are markets that performed exceptionally well during the pandemic, strong in-migration of new residents, faster local job market recoveries, environments conducive to work from home environments, which I find that really interesting. Much of that has to do with Wi-Fi and connectivity issues. As you all know, we are struggling to get that same level of service in our outlying areas, but I think it's reason for us to all be sure we continue that fight. Our president of the National Association of Realtors made this quote: "Overall, residential real estate will continue to be an important driver of our nation's economic recovery, and the activity in these markets will lead the way." So I just feel like that presents a really good opportunity for us throughout the state, but especially here in West Central Indiana. So I want to just kind of walk you through some of these things. Now, I recognize these are a lot of numbers that I'm throwing up in front of you, which is why I put the graph at the bottom, because I think that's an easier visual to follow. And depending on how large your screen, I think it will be really hard to see these numbers. So I'll try to just share a few highlights with you. So this first screen, we're looking at listings throughout the state. So in all economic regions of the state. So these are new listings that hit our market throughout the state. I'm going to review weekly totals with you. So if you look at the end of the year, and I'm going to start with 2020, the last week of the year last year, we put on roughly 1,107 new listings. As compared to the end of this year, we were at 907 listings. I don't have month-end data for January yet. I have almost to the end of January. So this is going to take us to about the 23rd of January this year. Last year, we were at 1,560 listings, and this year, 1,548. So on the listing side, we're kind of mirroring where we started the year last year. I'd like to point your attention to the bottom here, this graph. So the blue line represents listings, new listings that hit the market in 2020. You can see that we started off with a really strong first quarter in 2020, which was a saving grace as we hit our stay-at-home order on or about March the 23rd. So that starts about right here. And you can see how things just dropped off immediately. So that's the point. We all got really scared. We didn't know if we could recover from this. We really weren't sure what the outcome was. But I think it's interesting to watch just how those listings grew. You can see just a nice steady recovery there on the listing side. We had a little dip here, which represents the 4th of July. That's pretty common that you would see that dip. And then really throughout the year, we had just a nice steady, steady stream of new listings coming in until we get to that last quarter and you see it drop off again. That's pretty common for our industry, that last quarter and around the holidays, we see our listing activity drop off. So we've started this year kind of mirroring. We started out a little lower than we did last year, but we're picking that volume up there. So I think that remains to be seen. Clearly, listings are the name of the game as we go through this. I'd like to be sure I point out, so even in looking at those 2020 numbers, our inventory was incredibly tight in 2020. So while we were able to see some steadiness through there, it's still not the level of inventory that we need to keep a good, strong, balanced market. So that's the listing side throughout the state. Then I took that same information and put together for West Central Indiana. I'm not going to belabor these numbers because I think you can see that our economic region here in West Central Indiana really followed the same pattern that we did throughout the state. So listings were down at year end, listings were down year over year by 37%. We've seen that margin narrow a little bit as we got to the end of July. So, you know, we'll continue to watch that number. Okay, so moving on. Then we move to the sales side of the equation. So we just looked at new listings and now we're looking at daily sales that we're putting on the books. Again, I'm going to tally this in weekly totals just so you can see the differences. So at year end, last year, we had roughly 1,126 new sales in that week. as compared to year end this year, 1,614 new sales. So an increase year over year of 43%. And again, we're comparing week over week, not total sales, but week over week. So as you can see, we're battling just that old supply and demand issue. So the demand is really high and our supply is really low. That's not unique to West Central Indiana. It's not unique to the state of Indiana, and it's certainly not unique throughout the country. Then I took the same information so that you could see daily new sales just in the West Central Indiana region. Again, we really followed similarly to the patterns throughout the state. So at year end, that week, we were up 26%. Okay, so I think this is probably a little more meaningful information for all you. So this is the sold data. These are the transactions that actually made it to the closing table. So we spend a lot of time tracking our listing activity as well as our pending activity, but that sold data is really what we want to put our focus on. So if I take the information from January 1st through December 31st throughout the state, the color-coded map has it divided by economic regions as set forth by the state. So I would point out to you that in closed sales throughout the state, we had 96,014 closed sales. So year over year on closed volume, that's an increase of 6.4%. Some interesting things I'd kind of like to point out to you. So I think we've got a really good story to tell here in West Central Indiana. So we're the green color code here. And if you go over to this information, so West Central saw an increase in sales of 13.1% year over year. I can't really tell you the reason for that increased activity. You would expect increased activity in places like Northwest Indiana. There's a lot of activity going on here with the double track of the South Shoreline, where it's easier for folks to live in Indiana but work in Chicago. So we would expect some stronger numbers along there. But this 13.1%, I mean, we lead the state with increase year over year on our sold data. Okay, and then, well, actually, let me back up here a minute, I'm sorry. Okay, so back on this sold data. So there's a good story to tell, a nice increase year over year. So I'm sure you're wondering, okay, so what's the bad news? So it's somewhat frustrating to me because when we talk with our legislators, both in the Indiana General Assembly and on Capitol Hill, they all have caught the headline that the real estate market is strong. The headline we've struggled to get their attention on is this lack of listings. So that's sort of the bad news about what I have to deliver today. The demand is strong, so sales are up, but that inventory continues to shrink. So we are literally at historical lows with the inventory. At some point, if we can't correct this problem, we will run out of homes to sell. So that's the part that we really want to work together with our legislators. I think there's a lot of good work we can do within our economic region here, because I do think the markets that will figure this out will be the winners. So again, if I move to the listing side of the equation, again, these are total numbers for the year. On the total number of listings we received throughout the state, we had just over 104,000 listings last year, which is a decline of 4.6% over 2019. So again, we were tight on inventory in 2020, but that continues to decline. You can see the breakdowns on the regions here. Again, if we look at West Central, so our inventory is shorter in West Central Indiana than it is throughout the state. So we're down 7.2% on the inventory side. Okay, so then I thought you might find this interesting. I get a lot of questions on this information. So this is West Central Indiana, not just Beagle County, but West Central Indiana, and a breakdown by price to give you an idea of really what our price point is in our market. So we've taken and compared 2019 to 20. We've got a little information on 2021, but clearly we're not too far into the year yet. So you can see this less than 100,000 is where the greatest percent of our sales volume takes place in our economic region. Then we go through and break it down 100,000 to 150, 150 to 200,000. Then we start to really see the numbers drop off in the number of sales in that price range of 200 to 250. A further decline on the 250 to 350. So here's where I want to talk a little bit. So when we see new construction in Vigo County, we're typically going to be in this 350 and higher. We work a lot with our builders who tell us they're simply not able to build below this price point. We don't need more inventory in this price range. In this 350 and up, we truly don't need more inventory. It's my opinion that this is still a lingering effect of when Pfizer closed. So at that moment, you know, we had really highly compensated employees. We had highly skilled employees. They were highly sought after. Most of them were able to secure new employment, but for most that meant moving. So overnight, we had this glut of upper end listings in our marketplace. And I would venture to say we still are struggling to totally recover from that. So that's sort of the issue that we face in West Central Indiana. We need inventory, probably needed a little bit more than other areas of the state, but we're unable to build in that price point. However, if we can't figure out a solution to that, we will continue to struggle here. So that really comes into play when you look at economic development. Let's think a minute about a new casino coming in, or if we get the F-35 project here, or the new convention center, you know, anything that's going to bring new jobs. We are really at a disadvantage to have housing for these folks. So economic development and housing clearly go hand in hand. So it's my hope, none of this comes as any surprise to any of you that hear me talk. This has sort of been my soapbox the last couple of years. So I look forward to some collaboration. The mayor has been great to sit down and talk with us. We're trying to identify other housing partners. We've done some visits with other communities throughout the state that seem to have figured some of this out, so that we're not reinventing the wheel there. But, you know, it does create some problematic issues for us going forward if we can't correct the inventory issue. I think there's a lot to be said for the empty office space we're going to see throughout not only Indiana, but through the country. You know, the question remains, will some of that office space be turned into housing, condominium space, rentals, what have you? And I think those are all issues we'll continue to navigate as we go through 2021. So then just to compare solds, I gave you from 2016 to current on the number of properties sold both in the state of Indiana as well as the West Central Indiana region. You can see for the most part, we mirror the activity of the state, little dip here in 2019. But I always like to spend a little bit of time here. So this is the average price that's sold. So throughout the state, you can see a nice steady climb here up through 2020. The average price in the state is $220,000. As compared to our region in West Central Indiana, you can see this climb here. We're at $149,000 as our average. So, you know, I feel like we have a really great story to tell there when we're selling our quality of life and our affordability issue, not to mention we border the Illinois state line, which presents some opportunities for us because if you compare property taxes in Illinois as in comparison to Indiana, we have a really good story to tell there. Okay, let me see, how am I doing on time here? All right, so this comes from our showing services. If you've gone to look at a house in recent years, you know that we keep lot boxes on the front of it. So this is a report that's provided to us through our lockbox service. So if you take a look at the dark line here, this is 2020. So these are showings. Well, this is actually opening up lock boxes and going into houses. You can see we started last year off really strong, and then it came to just a screeching halt when the pandemic started. We slowly tried to figure out how that we could do that safely and keep our clients and our agents safe as we were doing these showings. And, you know, by about the end of May, we really mirrored what we did the prior year in showings. I will say that probably what we learned because of COVID protocols that were imposed on us is that the showings were serious buyers. So we really weren't taking out what we would deem tire kickers to go look at places, but really serious qualified buyers to look at it. If you look at the little orange line here in the corner, you can see that this year for 2021, we are just right where we were last year before the pandemic started. Okay, I'm going to hit some of this stuff really quick because I am running out of time. So this is from the National Association of Realtors. Again, this is from Dr. Lawrence Ewan, who I might add is a Purdue grad. We're always proud to claim that. But giving the forecast for 2020, giving the actual for 2020 and the forecast for 2021 and 2022. I think there'll be others on the call that will speak to GDP growth, so I'm going to leave that alone. Unemployment. We hope to see that decline in 2021 and again, a little more in 2022. I'd like to draw your attention to the 30-year fixed rate mortgage. As Bart can attest, certainly historical lows there. We really expect to see rates be very, very reasonable throughout 2022. Housing starts, I'm going to hit on in a minute, but as you can see, no real growth projected in housing starts. And that is sort of the issue that we're battling on the housing front, is figuring out a way to replace this inventory that we are retiring. Another forecast there on that percent of work from home. I heard the governor speak yesterday, and they're kind of at a statewide level looking at a third, a third, and a third. So 1/3 of our workforce won't return back to work and will continue to work from home. A third will return to their offices, and then a third that will do some sort of a hybrid of working from home and going into the office. So I want to talk a minute about housing starts in West Central Indiana. So the first thing that was really revealing for us, we had trouble really tracking this number. Each county tracks it in a little different manner, and most of the time we're throwing in new housing permits with those home improvement projects that you have to get a permit for. We literally called each town and municipality throughout these counties to get these numbers. And I will tell you, there are still 3 little municipalities I was unable to get. But you can see, so the blue is 2019 housing starts and the orange being 2020 housing starts. Not a real growth there. We need to see that outpacing at a much higher rate to really be able to effectively replace the inventory that we need. So that's just sort of some food for thought there. So what we have on our watch list going into 2021, we'll continue to monitor those single family housing starts. Our housing inventory that is for sale. And as I mentioned earlier, I really feel like the communities that will come out a winner from this post-COVID situation are those that can work together and collaborate to find a way to get new housing on the books. So again, I think those are the communities that will win. We'll continue to watch this work from home number. None of us are really sure how this is going to play out, but that's going to have a big impact on housing as well. For folks that are working from home, I have a son that lives in New York, and he and his wife are both working from home in a 600 square foot studio apartment. And as you can imagine, that is not the most conducive work or home environment. And I think we have a lot of stories like that. You know, are those folks going to stay in the densely populated areas, or will we see them migrate to areas and markets like West Central Indiana where they can work anywhere? Or will they buy up where they're at currently? So, you know, we need to keep our finger on those numbers to see what really happens. And then, of course, we'll continue to watch the foreclosure and rental evictions with the moratoriums that were placed in 2020. We're somewhat fearful of a bottleneck, and that can explode quickly because rents weren't forgiven, mortgage payments weren't forgiven, they continue to add up, and what impact that has on our housing market remains to be seen. So that is all I have. And I feel like I just spit out a lot of information really quick. I apologize. We are having our legislative meetings for the Indiana Association of Realtors going on right now. So literally at 9 o'clock, I have to jump into another call. So I've asked Kristen and Jessica to, if you have questions for me, to copy those questions from the chat and share that. By all means, feel free to reach out to me. You can see my email address there. My phone number is very easy to find. I'll give it. It's 812-240-1025. I'd be happy to answer any questions that I could, or happy to hear your thoughts on any of this as we navigate what lies ahead of us for 2021. So with that, I'm going to stop my screen share, and Kristen, I am going to turn it back over to you, I think.
Yep, you are. Thanks, Bernice. I think Bernice has done a tremendous job in informing all of us about how important the housing market is to economic development, community development. And, you know, there's so many of us that are having these conversations around talent attraction and retention. And the housing piece is just so critical as a part of that. So Bernice, thank you for continuing to lead that charge and continuing to bug us and continuing to reinforce that message, because we need to hear it so we can get creative and make those solutions happen. So again, thank you. Jump off, go do your IAR thing, and we'll continue on with the program. And as Bernice mentioned, if you do have questions for her, she's not dodging them, she promises. Feel free to submit those in the chat, send us an email, we'll get those to her and get those questions answered for you all. So thank you. All right, let's continue on. As with tradition, we've asked an expert in the business field and a native of West Central Indiana, Gary Dick of Inside Indiana Business, to provide us with a statewide economic perspective. Gary is the host and creator of Inside Indiana Business Television and also serves as president and managing editor of Grow Indiana Media Ventures, an Indianapolis-based company focused on producing and distributing Indiana business news and information through multiple media channels. Gary and technology entrepreneur Scott Jones launched the company in 2000. Today, myself very much included, more people get their Indiana business news from Inside Indiana Business than from any other source. If you don't get his newsletters, you need to sign up because they're fantastic. You can watch his television show on 15 Indiana network and public stations, listen daily to radio reports on 27 statewide stations, or get your news on demand from a collection of email, web, and mobile business news products. Gary's recognized across the state as an Indiana business leader and a respected business journalist. He has been awarded the state's top honor, the Sagamore of the Wabash, 3 times. He's been awarded Ernst & Young's prestigious Entrepreneur of the Year award and recognized by the Small Business Administration as Journalist of the Year. Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick has also received an Emmy 5 times for Best Interview Discussion Program Series or Special. Gary is a frequent keynote speaker and moderator on issues related to Indiana's business and state economy, and serves as a business news analyst for Wish TV, Indiana local news source, and 93 WIBC radio in Indianapolis. Quite a long resume, but he is quite deserving of all of those honors. Please join me in welcoming Gary Dick. Gary?
Kristen, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to connect with the Groundhog Day forecast and connect with the Wabash Valley. Wish it were in person. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces and friends on the screen in front of me here. But again, hopefully next year it will be in person. Certainly a lot to talk about as we begin 2021. A lot of uncertainty. We typically say that, but I think this year, more than any, coming out of the pandemic, remaining in the pandemic as 2021 begins, there continues to be, let's face it, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering around the state of Indiana across all sectors of the economy. But there also are some indications as we look at it, as we talk with folks around the state of Indiana, some positive indicators and some things that have happened, some tea leaves that may suggest that Indiana is positioned certainly as well, in some cases maybe better than other states, to come out of this pandemic and all of the negative impacts there. Again, all sectors of the economy in Indiana, no sector was certainly spared by the impact of the economy. Manufacturing, Indiana's bread and butter industry, the most manufacturing intensive state in the country, hit very hard, certainly, especially early in the pandemic. A number of plants, including some of the big auto plants, but plants of all sizes, that trickled down through the supply chain, ended up shutting down, cutting back production. Some of the smaller operations actually closed. In agriculture, another very important piece of the Indiana economy, there was a report that came out just last week that pegged the economic impact from the pandemic at about $500 million, $500 million, which is a big number, obviously, but when you consider the multi-billion-dollar nature of agriculture, perhaps not as severe as some would suggest. The pork industry with the processing plants, especially early on, shut down, especially hard hit. Although, as you talk to ag economists, they say, hey, crop prices have come back. Some of the export markets have improved as well. So that has helped farmers, not to mention some of the government help that farmers got. Restaurant tourism, hospitality, really a difficult story there. And I don't know that it's going to get that much better necessarily in the near term. So many impacts and these are entrepreneurs many times, these restaurant owners around the state who have been impacted in a big way. There was a report that came out some weeks ago that suggested if things didn't change, maybe half of the restaurants in Indiana, that's a big number, but half of the restaurants may end up closing or certainly scaling back in a big way. So those folks are certainly battling through the pandemic as we speak. To give you an idea, and you think about tourism and what an important piece it is for the Indiana economy, and I think increasingly will be an important part, obviously, of the Terre Haute and the West Central Indiana economy. In Indianapolis, which tourism, hospitality, very, very big piece of the Indiana economy. It's just been devastated. A year ago in March, as the pandemic hit, Indianapolis was to host some NCAA basketball regional events. Those were canceled. The Indianapolis 500 ultimately ran, but without fans later in the year. No Indy 500 in May. Hotel occupancy that would have been around 95% in May dropped down to about 5%, 5 to 10%. So just a dramatic impact, and that is still continuing to be felt. The NBA All-Star Game has been canceled. Indianapolis was to host that huge weekend, which was expected to have a tens of millions of dollars impact on the economy. That has been canceled, although it's been rescheduled. Indy will get it. I think it's 2024. So that is a positive. And another positive that many of you may have seen is the all of March Madness. All 67 teams will be playing in Indiana, primarily Indianapolis, but also West Lafayette and Bloomington. And that is a very positive in what is an otherwise fairly negative scene. The estimated impact there expected to be about $100 million. So that a little light at the end of the tunnel, certainly for the Indiana economy, and in particular in central Indiana. Another reason I think you can be optimistic, I think, is Indiana's, as you look at the state, its perception from economic development officials, from site selection consultants, from companies looking to expand. Last year, obviously a difficult year in the pandemic, but the Indiana Economic Development Corporation says despite the pandemic, 2020 was its fourth consecutive record year for economic development deals. Now, these are commitments. These aren't guaranteed of happening, but these are companies who say they are committing to the Indiana economy. 282 commitments last year from companies planning to locate or expand in the state of Indiana. That represents $5.6 billion with a B, $5.6 billion in investment and more than 31,000 jobs. Now, again, those are commitments over the next 3 to 5 years. And because companies make those decisions, not based on the near term, they're looking long term. And as they look at 5 years and beyond, they continue to look at Indiana. There's indications they continue to look at Indiana as a place where they want to do business. So that was a positive sign. Another positive sign in terms of the trend is where the average wage of those jobs was at. Last year was at $28.13 an hour, which I think comes up to about $59,000 annually. Still not where it needs to be or where folks would like it to be in Indiana. Per capita income continues to lag, but is headed perhaps in the right direction. Another story that made headlines, I think, in 2020, if you look inside the numbers of economic development, that's direct foreign investment. Foreign companies looking at Indiana, companies from all over the globe. I think you're going to continue to see the state of Indiana strategically from the governor's office on down, making a very intentional effort to attract foreign investment into the state of Indiana. Some big deals have been landed in recent years with big impact. Infosys, the Indian software company, which continues to grow, has its USA Training Center at the old Indianapolis Airport, just off I-70 in Indianapolis. Ultimately, Infosys would like to have about 3,000 jobs here and train everyone they bring into the United States here in Indiana. An interesting story, Solinf Tech is a Brazil, not Brazil, Clay County, but Brazil, South America a company, is initially announced their precision agriculture company. And precision ag is another area the state's really focused on in terms of trying to attract business to the state. Solinf Tech decided to select West Lafayette and Purdue University as its North American headquarters. It was just a few months after that. They liked Indiana so much, they said, you know what, we're going to move the company here. So their global headquarters has moved to Indiana. Saab is a Swiss-based aerospace company, again, locating in West Lafayette. You look at the automakers, and again, that's the traditional manufacturing job that Indiana has been known for. But the auto industry in general, General Motors included, big investment up at its truck plant in Fort Wayne. But you look at the investment from the Japanese automakers. SIA in Lafayette continues to expand. There are well over 5,000 jobs there. And an interesting story to keep an eye on because of the proximity to Terre Haute and the Wabash Valley is Toyota. That company has continued to grow its Princeton footprint. I think it's now up over something like 70 football fields under roof in Princeton. So keep an eye on Toyota, because do not be surprised if there's another big announcement in Southwest Indiana at the Princeton plant. A lot of talk about that kind of behind the scenes, if you will. So these are all projects that have, could have gone anywhere really, but they chose Indiana, and I think that makes a statement. One of the biggest economic development deals, I think one of the biggest that I've seen in a number of years, in many years maybe, but it was a big deal announced late in 2020, will have impact in the Wabash Valley, and that's Elanco Animal Health, based in Greenfield, made a big announcement again late in the year that they were going to move their corporate headquarters from Greenfield to downtown Indianapolis, in the old GM stamping plant site. And for those who may or may not be familiar with that, it's right along the White River, on the west side of the White River, across from downtown Indianapolis. Huge undeveloped site that exists there along the banks of the White River. So Elanco is committed to putting its corporate campus on that site, which will overlook the skyline of downtown Indianapolis, be a major addition to downtown Indianapolis, extending the downtown across the White River for the first time, really changing the dynamic there in a big way. But importantly, that $300 million investment, the Indy headquarters got a lot of attention, as it should have, but that was very much a statewide investment. And a lot of the details are yet to come on this, but look for the Clinton plant, the Elanco plant in Vermilion County, my hometown, to get a big infusion as part of this expansion. So that's really big news. It will mean new jobs. It will mean new investment in Vermilion County going forward. There was an anticipation that would have been talked about in the initial announcement. That didn't happen, but I think you'll see it happen at some point this year. And it'll be a huge shot in the arm, certainly for that part of the state. And again, a commitment by Elanco, not only downtown Indy and Clinton, but look in West Lafayette as well. There's a lot of speculation that Elanco may locate a major research and development facility at Purdue in West Lafayette. So that is a huge economic development announcement that will have, I think, ramifications and impact for a long time. If you look at the unemployment numbers, and frankly, I think the unemployment number is, I don't know how important necessarily that is, because it's down. I think in December it dropped to 4.3%, which is phenomenal based on where it was last spring, which was 16+% in Indiana and various places in Indiana. But we all know there are more people unemployed or suffering in the employment game, the job market, then that number would suggest. But if you go inside the numbers, and it's good, let's face it, it's good that that number is going down. Indiana is second in the nation in terms of percentage of professional and business services jobs created, professional and business services jobs. I think another trend or another thing you may, you will be seeing in the coming months is Indiana going after remote workers. Let's face it, the pandemic has proven that we can all work remotely. And companies are looking at that as maybe a way of life going forward. This is how we're going to do business going forward. In fact, the state chamber has introduced or will introduce a bill at the State House that provides incentives for folks to go after remote workers. So if you're working for a company in California, why not move to Indiana where you've got better cost of living, quality of life, all those types of things, tax climate, all those advantages we talk about in the state of Indiana. Why not move here and work remotely? So you're going to see Indiana and a number of other states, frankly, go after remote workers as a strategy going forward. I pulled some interesting statistics on Terre Haute and the statistical area there in West Central Indiana that I thought were interesting. Again, unemployment pre-lockdown was around 4%, post-lockdown 16.5% last April. So obviously it was up. It's back down now. That's a good thing. A pretty amazing bounce back when you consider that partial lockdown. The hardest hit industries in Terre Haute and the Wabash Valley, not surprisingly, leisure and hospitality. And that is still dropping. On the positive side, education and health employment, while dropping, is beginning to come back a bit in the Wabash Valley. Here's what I found interesting too, and I think it gets to one of the focus areas for the state of Indiana, and that's education, and continue to improve education. According to statistics I got from Matt Will at the University of Indianapolis, Terre Haute is really in the Wabash Valley has made some good strides in terms of education over the past decade. 51% more associate degrees. And I know some great universities, colleges and universities there are helping to make that happen. 20% more bachelor's degrees over the past decade, and a 33% decrease in high school dropouts. So positive on the education front. Population dropped over the past decade, and in the forecast for population in Terre Haute and the Wabash Valley is expected to be flat to maybe grow a bit over the next decade. And that is a huge issue for the state of Indiana going forward, is how do we keep people here and attract more people to the state of Indiana. A lot of positive projects, or a number of positive projects, certainly in Terre Haute and the Wabash Valley. The casino is one that's getting a lot of attention, and rightfully so, as that will bring a lot of attention to Terre Haute, Vigo County, and West Central Indiana. I know it was mentioned earlier, I don't have an update, but on the F-35 project, what that could bring potentially to that part of the state. The renovation of Holman Center, the convention center there, those things kind of coming together to creating maybe a new economic development strategy, or one strategy focused on tourism, hospitality, and bringing more folks to Terre Haute. I also thought, and there's such a focus, and it has been for some time now, on regional economic development, and not just working as one city or one county, but as multiple cities and multiple counties. I think it's interesting to note that as you look in that general vicinity to the south and southwest of Terre Haute, close by, a number of positive projects that have been announced over the course of the past year or so. True RX Management in Davis County, Life Sciences Investment, National Pharmacy Benefit Management Company, 90 jobs of $1.8 million investment. Interesting project in Greene County. We just featured it on the show last week. It's called Land Betterment Corporation. It is a company in Fishers. They're taking an old land mine, or an old coal mine in Greene County, and turning it in to a craft spirits distillery, and basically a tourism type of facility there. Work is underway now, 55 jobs, $7 million commitment. Again, if you look on the technology side, back in Davis County, defense industry, you mentioned the F-35. One of the, I think, selling points of Indiana are all the defense assets that exist in the state. But Artisan Electronics in Davis County has announced about a $350,000 investment in 20 new jobs in that part of the state. So a number of things happening in the general vicinity in West Central Indiana as well. As you look more broadly around the state of Indiana, I think we are beginning as a state to diversify. And I should mention, I don't want to bore you with statistics, but again, in talking with Matt Will at the University of Indianapolis about a week ago or so, he told me that Vigo County, according to national or government statistics, ranks 628th out of 3,142 regions or areas around the country. So top 20% in terms of diversified economy. So that surprised me, I think, in a good way. You would think, for so many years, Terre Haute and basically every city, every region in the state was, unfortunately tied to maybe one industry. And that diversity is a good thing. So being in the top 20% when it comes to diversity, I think is a positive going forward. Again, as you look more broadly at the state, I think Indiana, manufacturing intensive to be sure, but beginning to diversify a little bit. And I think a big reason for that is a focus on technology, innovation, entrepreneurship. We saw venture capital coming into the state last year at its highest level, still not where it needs to be sure, but there's a growing recognition that there are innovators, there are great ideas and companies beginning to percolate here in the state of Indiana. A great example of that in Indianapolis is High Alpha. It was a spin out, if you will, of the sale of ExactTarget to Salesforce several years ago. High Alpha, and they're going to make an announcement, I think tomorrow, maybe on yet another company, which I think will be the 25th company that they have spun out since they formed. It's a venture studio, if you will. 20 plus companies that they have launched. So it's that kind of activity that's beginning to get attention in the state of Indiana. And if you look at the assets in Terre Haute and the Wabash Valley, everyone needs to assess, what their positives are, what their really great selling points are. You look at the university, the academic presence there, obviously with Indiana State, with Rose-Hulman, St. Mary's, Ivy Tech with a major presence there, and more, WGU Indiana and others. And then you look at Rose-Hulman Ventures, which is celebrating, I think this year, I guess it's this year, we just did a story on it, 20 years in operation. So there is the talent pipeline, to be sure, in terms of all the young talent and the students coming out of the academic institutions in the Wabash Valley that I think is a huge advantage going forward. Putting some quick headlines as we whip around the state of Indiana, what the big stories are in each region. If you look to central Indiana, I think it's tech growth. It's been that way for the last number of years, from big companies like Salesforce and Infosys to some of the mid-sized and smaller companies. We're beginning to see more startup companies locate and grow in the state of Indiana as well. Indiana continues to grow tech jobs at about 2.5 or so times the national average. Important to note when we talk about tech jobs, though, and this applies certainly to the Terre Haute, the Wabash Valley, and the entire state, is Salesforce, Infosys, these tech companies, trendy tech companies get all the attention as tech jobs. But if you look at the tech-enabled jobs that are in the state of Indiana, it is enormous. Whether you look at Cummins or Anthem or Lilly or any of the big companies around the state of Indiana, they are tech, in so many ways, tech companies. In fact, if you talk to Tom Linebarger, the CEO at Cummins, an engine company, diesel engine company, he says, no, we are a tech company. We're a technology company. And that really is their mantra there. So that's something to keep in mind as we continue to look at some of the things going on in the state. If you go to Northwest Indiana, I think for the first time in a while, you're beginning to see some fairly substantial economic activity. Places like Valparaiso and Whiting and Hammond and Michigan City and Dyer are making investments in their downtowns, investments in their communities, in part to attract maybe some folks from Chicago. They want to get businesses to move there. But even if your business is in Chicago, you work in Chicago, why not come and live in Indiana where it's a better quality of life, cost of living as well. Gary, which has seen such a difficult ride for the past, really 30, 40 plus years, has had several positive announcements in recent months. Alliance Steel moving its headquarters from Chicago to Gary. An expansion at the Gary Airport. They've got a $400 million casino project that's about to open. And I know it was mentioned in the earlier presentation, but the South Shore, the double tracking of the South Shore rail line in Northwest Indiana, a generational project for the region. Been talked about for many, many years. It finally is happening. They have the funding. So that's going to make travel in Northwest Indiana, but also from Northwest Indiana to downtown Chicago, much more efficient, and make Northwest Indiana a more positive place, I think, going forward. And if you go to Southeast Indiana, similar story. It's been the same story, and that's distribution and logistics. The River Ridge Commerce Center in Southeast Indiana, 6,000 plus acres, continues to grow. They've got a major Amazon facility, a steel campus. They are right along the Ohio River Bridges project, 2 bridges. One of them goes right into that development in Southeast Indiana. It's connected to the Port of Indiana, Jeffersonville, and the UPS World Port across the river in Louisville. So there is a huge focus and emphasis on logistics, not only in Indiana, but in particular Southeast Indiana because of those developments. I think one of the hottest areas, arguably, is Northeast Indiana. And you look at what's going on in Fort Wayne with downtown development, riverfront development that's happening in that part of the state as well. And they just announced that financing is in place to move forward with a $300 million electric works project, which is a redevelopment of the old General Electric campus, which at one time, believe it or not, I think employed more than 20,000 people making electric motors in Fort Wayne. That is sat vacant, decaying for a number of years. They're going to transform that into a live, work, play scenario in that part of the state. In Evansville, again, a focus on their downtown, Southwest Indiana. The Stone Family Center for Health Sciences is open, has been open, a new convention center hotel, got some residential development going on. And the big players in the economy down there, Berry Global, which is, I think, one of the best kept secrets in the state of Indiana, multi-billion-dollar company, continues to grow. I mentioned Toyota, and again, keep an eye on that plant there for perhaps a big announcement in the coming weeks in Southwest Indiana. If you go north of Terre Haute a bit to Lafayette and Purdue University, their $1 billion Discovery Park District is coming to life and coming to reality. It's attracted Rolls-Royce. It's a live, work, and play environment to attract people, to attract staff, faculty, talented academic folks, but also to attract students and to attract companies as well. So that will be an interesting development in that part of the state. The state's focus in terms of industries, I think, will continue to be advanced manufacturing. That's still king. It will be distribution and logistics, food and ag innovation. Increasingly, I've talked about that, I know, at this event in the past as well, but we're seeing more and more focus on the ag bioscience industry, and that is indeed a very important part of the economy for Indiana going forward. And then technology. I think IT and related industries are going to be a major player there as well. I think when you blow all the smoke away, there's a fair amount of positive activity in the state, but if you blow all the smoke away, I think it gets back to one word, and that's talent. And if you talk to the state of Indiana, they'll say the same thing. We've got to get keep more people here. That's keep more people from the great colleges and universities in West Central Indiana, whether it's Indiana State Rose, St. Mary's, whatever the case might be, but also attract people and make your downtowns, make your regions a place where people want to be. And I think the regions that do that, and I know there's a lot of positive movement in terms of regional economic development in Terre Haute and the Wabash Valley. I think that's really positive and will be positive going forward. So those just some of the things we're seeing. I kind of rambled for a bit there, but there is, I think, as a bottom line, I think challenges exist, will continue to exist. into 2022, maybe a little beyond. But I think Indiana's position, based on everything we hear and people we talk to, Indiana's position to come out of this, in a fairly good situation. So thank you very much, and wish nothing but good luck and success for West Central Indiana going forward. I have a special place in my heart for Terre Haute since I grew up and went to Indiana State as well. So look forward to covering some positive stories there going forward.
Thanks, Gary. I was going to thank you for all your support of our area. I know that is, we are your hometown as a graduate of ISU, and then also as a graduate of Clinton High School. I always have to say that. I know you appreciate it.
Wildcats, that's right.
So thank you very much for joining us today. I know Gary has to jump off and go to another commitment, but if you have questions for him, again, like we mentioned with Bernice, feel free to email us, put it in the chat. We'll be sure to get those to Gary and get his input on it. So thank you for your time today. Appreciate it. All right. And he did a great job of teeing up our next speaker. GE Aviation, as we all know, located in Terre Haute, it really plays a critical part in being the driver of our local economy. And today we're very lucky to be joined by the new plant leader, Gerald Bouvelet. I think Gerald has been in his position for maybe a little over a year in Terre Haute, but because of COVID, we've never been able to meet in person, just a lot of Zoom connections, but really fortunate to have him in our community and anxious to hear what he's going to share today. So Gerald, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Terre Haute Chamber of Commerce team for organizing this Groundhog Day event. This is my first one, so I'm very glad to be part of it. So my name is Gerald Bouvelet, and I am the Terre Haute GE Aviation plant leader. I started last year around April. So let me share my screen. All right. So today I just wanted to share a little bit the impact of COVID and go back to a little bit 2020 and the overall impact to our industry, our aviation industry, globally and also locally here in Terre Haute. I just want to start with a quick introduction of our business here in Terre Haute. We have two plants. One is located on 3rd Street, and the other one is located on Locust Street. We have a total of 278,000 square feet of manufacturing floor, and we currently employ 323 employees. What we do is, you can see on that picture, that is a combustor for a jet engine. So that's what we manufacture, and we also manufacture titanium structure supporting 15 different engine programs for GE Aviation. So we're a pretty significant operation for our business. Me personally, I've been with GE for 10 years. I worked in different plants in different states. I started with GE Transportation. We manufactured locomotives for the North American market. So when I am stuck at a railroad crossing in Terre Haute, I enjoy looking at those CSX locomotives go by, because I appreciate the technology and what it takes to make such marvel machines. So for me, it's not a wasted time. I'm just enjoying some of these wonderful locomotives. So I moved to Terre Haute last year, and I want to tell a little bit more of a story before we go into some data and showing a little bit what happened last year. But so I personally moved last year in April from Boston to Terre Haute. My family moved a little bit later. My youngest son was still going to high school, so they moved in June of 2020. And my son now has joined ISU, and he's doing a computer science degree. So he's here with us studying. But I remember last year in February, we had an all hands, and our EHS leader was talking about this thing called COVID. And he just said, hey, just make sure you wash your hands, you cover your cough, you take your precaution. I think we had no idea what was to happen back in February. And now we look forward a year later, it's like, oh my God, just trying to realize the impact it had on our life and also on our industry. So I had to travel with the relocation. I had to fly from Boston to to Indy multiple times to go see my family and go back and forth for the relocation. I think that's when it personally struck me when I went to Logan Airport in Boston and I looked at the departure screen back in April and could only see 6 flights. That was the reality in April. Going through security with nobody there, all the store closed at the airport, boarding a plane with 200 seats and only 6 of us were inside the plane. I think that's when I really starting to understand what was happening to our industry and what was about to come, because I could see how our customers were hurt and what happened with the global shutdown that we were experiencing. So I think 2020 really taught us 2 things, or me personally, at least I would say, and that's going to be my common theme throughout this presentation is I have 2 words in mind. Is the first one is resilience. And I think the second one is adaptation. And when you look at resilience, I think I'm going to show you one slide or one picture that can tell more than 1,000 words. So this is the impact of COVID to our industry. So what this chart represents is a worldwide passengers kilometers flown. So it's just how many people travel, converted in total of kilometers. And you can see the impact of COVID-19 in 2020. So I think what's remarkable is in comparison to other crises that we've seen over the last 20 years. So when you think about back in 2001 and the 9/11 attack, you could see the impact to our industry back then. And you can see the global financial crisis back in 2008. And now in 2020, you can see the impact that it had in our industry. It was very devastating to all of us globally. Another one is also, you can see the same thing, right? The change year over year. And in March and April 2020, we pretty much lost 95% of the global passenger volume. And you can see the impact was not as much important in overall industry production and global cargo traffic. But one thing that you can forecast here is how quick we got impacted and how long the recovery is going to be. So a couple additional numbers. Overall, in 2020, the aviation industry lost 54% in passenger volume, and the total industry lost globally 84 billion in net profit in 2020, just to put things in perspective. GE Aviation, unfortunately, also felt the impact of the pandemic. We saw a 60% reduction in commercial engine and commercial services. So I think from a resilience standpoint, the new reality is, and we talked about a little bit, is that people are going to travel less for a while, whether it's for leisure, with some of the restrictions that we see now, but also with businesses, and are starting to leverage technology to work remotely or meet remotely. Today is a perfect example that we're not traveling to see each other and meet together in person, but we're still meeting. And yesterday we had our annual GE Aviation Global Conference. And I remember back in 2019, I would fly from Boston to Cincinnati to meet with the leadership team and listen for a couple of days, or leaders talking about the state of our business. And yesterday was 100% remote. So these are the changes that are happening real time in our industry. So locally, I think last year, facing this reality, we had to adapt, and adapting means we had to right size our capacity facing this new reality. So in May of 2020, we unfortunately had to announce a reduction in force, impacting 100 of our associates. And that was, something that it was difficult, but we had to go and face that new reality. So one thing that we decided to look also is, there's a lot of outside elements impacting that we did not necessarily have control over, but we really decided as a team to focus on what we control. And we wanted to do that, and we wanted to build resilience. So we did really two things that I want to share with you today. The first one is we started to go on our lean journey. And if you're not familiar with lean, or if you heard that word before, if I would give a simple definition, lean is really about continuous improvement. And what we did last year, and we looked at our processes and we tried to identify non-value added, or what we call waste. And waste can come in different forms, right? It can be inventory, it can be defects and reworks, it can be transportation or wait time. So what we do is we set up a number of Kaizen events, which is another words for continuous improvement. We met with our operators, they laid out the process, and they worked through identifying waste and how we can improve our operation. So that was a way for us to stay focused, stay resilient, and really work on what we control. The other one was really increasing our communication. I think what's important in time of uncertainty is to communicate more and often. So last year, I would say every week, I've met at least twice a week with roundtables, business councils, internally, operators, to really listen to their, I would say, concerns, anxiety about the future, and really listen to them and communicate about what was the business doing and what was the plan. Obviously, when you go through around the layoffs, a lot are concerned about another one and what's going to happen. So we spend a lot of time communicating and sharing as many informations as possible, real time, to eliminate some rumors or additional anxiety. Finally, the other piece that I wanted to talk about, because this is a very grim picture of our industry and what happened in 2020. But I think what's important here is also to look at the light at the end of the tunnel and staying focused on that. The tunnel is very long. It's a very dark tunnel, but there is light at the end. And I think I want to share with you a couple success stories that are happening at GE Aviation, but they're also impacting our operation here in Terre Haute. And there are two stories, one on commercial space and one in the military space. And I wanted to talk about that. So here's our first one. So last year in September, the FAA certified our first GE9X engine. So the GE9X engine is the world's largest and most powerful commercial engine in the world. And yes, our Terre Haute team was part of the development of this engine. So when Gary talks about talent, I think that is a testament of the talent that we have locally in Terre Haute. And the team here locally was very proud of being part of this success story. And I wanted to share that with you today, because I think this is something that if you talk to some of our engineers locally here in Terre Haute, they can be very proud of. The second one, from a military standpoint, back in 2019, GE won the ITEP contract. So the ITEP stands for the Improved Turbine Engine Program with the US Army. And this is a multi-year contract. And also our Terre Haute team will be supporting this engine. So this engine will be pretty much powering the Blackhawks and Apache engine for US Army and our military, and it is replacing our current GE T700 engines. And our Terre Haute team will be part of this project in years to come. So I think this is important to look at how bright the future is. I will tell you that the way we see our recovery globally, it will take 2 to 3 years. We anticipate to see what we call the narrow body aircraft recovering by 2023, and the wide body aircraft recovering by 2024. So really, in conclusion, I hope you had the opportunity to understand the impact COVID had on our business, how we build resilience in 2020, how we're adapting and looking forward to the future. And I just want to use a quote that our former CEO and chairman at GE, Jack Welch, said one day that I think is very relevant to our era today, is to face the reality as it is, not as it was or as you wish it to be. Thank you very much.
Gerald, thank you. That was a great presentation. I think you hit the nail on the head perfectly. 2020 was certainly a very challenging year, but I know that there is a light at a lot of the end of the tunnels for our region in terms of economic development. And it's so great to hear what GE Aviation is working on, and really neat to hear that our local Terre Haute teams were involved in the development of those great projects. So really appreciate you sharing that information with us today. I didn't see any questions in the chat for Gerald, but if something comes up later, again, feel free to reach out to myself, Jessica, and we'll be able to pass that information along to Gerald and get his answers. So again, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You know, Gary Dick, as I said, he did a great job of teeing up our presenters for later in the program, and he really hit the nail on the head with this next one. He mentioned Elanco and their planned expansion in downtown Indy, and we're really happy to be joined today by Casey Schreppel, who is the executive director and site head for Elanco's animal health manufacturing site, just a little bit north of Terre Haute, a little bit north of Clinton in Vermilion County. So Casey, we'd like to welcome you today and here's some thoughts from you.
Great. Thank you for this opportunity, Kristen. I wanted to just introduce a couple other people that I have online with me. Carrie and Tim Rick. So Carrie's part of our communications team at our corporate center. And then Tim Rick is my new HR business partner. He just wanted to join us and hear about the area. He's new to the area. So we have a slide deck to kind of walk you guys through here. And again, I'm going to make sure that I do this correctly because every online system is different. Okay, screen 2. Let me go into presentation mode, maybe. Here we go. Okay, I think, can you guys see my screen now? Okay, great. All right. So thank you again for the introduction. Just a little bit about myself, and then I'll let Carrie introduce herself. You can probably tell from my accent, I'm born and bred Hoosier. So I went to college here in Terre Haute at Rose-Hulman, and then got a master's degree at Purdue. So I have both ends of the spectrum. I know at Rose, we always say that friends don't let friends go to Purdue, but I can't say that because I went to both schools. But I've worked for Elanco for 16 years and spent the first 10 years of my career here at Clinton. And my family and I just moved back from Maine, so we were very happy to move back to the area and settle in Terre Haute and Clinton. So I'll let Carrie kind of give a little bit of introduction for herself as well.
Hey everybody, I'm Carrie McGrath, and I don't have a West Central Indiana accent. I apologize. I am from Northwest Indiana. So you might want to have a swig of coffee so that you can endure my Northwest Indiana accent. But I am the head of North America Communications for Elanco. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about what drives us in terms of what we call our why. All of the Elanco employees have their why, which is what drives them to do the work that we do. And then also, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about the planned new headquarters, give you guys some information on that and show you some of the site plans and take questions. So with that, Casey.
All right. All right. So what I hope you guys are able to walk away this morning as our message for Elanco is what we do, our why, like Carrie mentioned, but then how does Elanco tie into and how important are our employees, number 2, and our community, number 3. So our why, our employees, and our community. We really believe here at Elanco that we're trying to solve some of the world's toughest problems, specifically around hunger. And and that's really our focus with both our employees and our why and our customers. And our vision is really simply put, food and companionship enriching life. And that goes directly into our promise. And that's both with our employees and with our customers. And like I mentioned earlier, I spent the first 10 years of my career here at Clinton with Elanco right out of college. And I was just blown away by the amount of opportunities that Elanco gives to their employees to give back to the community. And I wanted to share a few of those opportunities with this group. Unfortunately, COVID, as I'm sure multiple of your organizations got hit by, we've had to pivot on how we gave back and how we donated. I would say probably more with financial benefits versus time, like physical employee time at area 501c3s. So I just wanted to share some of those historical points with all of you that I take a lot of pride in. One is back in 2018, our North and South Vermilion high schools came to our plant site and did a meal packing competition that was great between those two football teams and our employees. And then we were able to give all of those meal packs to Catholic Charities and various Wabash Valley food pantries. So that's just an example of being able to interact with our employees and with our community. And that's what really drives the excitement at our plant site whenever we see what we do, being able to give back to our community. And then secondly, as I've come back to the Clinton area 6 years later, the other thing that has just blown me away, we have a wall in our entry area that talks about our trusted by generations. We have, I would say, over 15 or 20 families that have trusted us with literally with their family. We have generations of fathers and grandfathers and sons and daughters that have worked at our facility and continue to work at our facility. And that has just blown me away by that dedication. That's a true incentive that our employees have to see the growth of this facility, to see that we produce quality products coming out of our facility here at Clinton and in Terre Haute. So that kind of touches on our vision, our promise, our employees, and our community. So the next part of the presentation that I want to share with all of you is a bit more technical about who we are, the products that we make here at Elanco. And one kind of inside joke that we say at Elanco is that we are a 66-year-old startup. And that's because we've progressed significantly from the beginning in 1954. Most of you in this area probably equate us to our ties with Lilly, which is where our foundation, started, which was in the ag side of the business. And then it shifted significantly over in the 1990s to animal health. And then from there, we really started to grow and expand and acquire other companies. Specifically in 2014, we acquired Lohman Animal Health, which was a primarily focused vaccine facility. That we have a facility in Winslow, Maine. That's actually where I was returning from last year. And then a facility in Cuxhaven, Germany. And then in the same year, we also acquired Novartis Animal Health, which again increased our companion animal and our vaccine portfolio. And then most of you have probably heard, and if you haven't, I'm happy to inform you guys today that in 2018, We actually were able to ring the bell at the New York Stock Exchange, and we became our own publicly traded company as Elanco. And then in 2019, we fully divested from Lilly. And so Elanco is its own standalone company. And last year, we had a significant, just a very busy year, layering on top normal business and then COVID. We also acquired Bayer Animal Health. And as you'll see in the next few slides, that's really complemented our portfolio here at Elanco and gives us more strength as a company, both locally and globally. So just some fun facts, some sound bites to share with all of you. Like I mentioned, we were founded in 1954. We have about 10,000 employees globally. Later in the presentation, I'll give you some specifics around the Clinton site and the Terre Haute site, but globally, we're about 10,000, 20 manufacturing facilities. We have a handful in the US, and then I would say another handful OUS, outside of the US. And what I mentioned before, acquiring Bayer really helped us balance our portfolio. And you'll see that on both the farm animal and the pet health side of the business throughout the presentation. Okay. So then I'm not going to go through line by line on this slide. What I wanted to share with all of you on this is really how COVID impacted us. So you'll see a portion of this slide as disciplined delivery during turbulent times. And I think we could all agree that 2020 was turbulent times. And I wanted to give a call out to both Kristen and the Terre Haute Chamber of Commerce. I really appreciated the initiative that the Chamber had last year and continues to have. They actually brought a handful of manufacturing leads together on a consistent basis so we could share lessons learned, new incentives and new practices, safety protocols that we put in place so that we could all be on the same page throughout the Wabash Valley. And that was really appreciated. And I think, it was also nice just to kind of hear the struggles or the challenges that each other were going through. But I would say the biggest thing that we struggled with, and that was a challenge beyond the obvious, was just the rapid change. So, as a technical facility, a manufacturing site, we change thoughtfully. We make changes at a certain pace. And last year we had to change very rapidly given local requirements, state requirements, our corporate facility requirements. So that was definitely a challenge. One strong item that I'm very thankful for is during 2020, we were able to continue to hire employees at both of our Terre Haute and Clinton facilities. So we are fortunate. We didn't have any work reductions here at those two facilities, which really helped our reach out to the community and continue to deliver our products to our customers. And then along with that, I wanted to share, as we've struggled through COVID, the industry to a certain extent has become a bit more attractive, the animal health and pet health industry, because we've really seen an uptick, and I think we've started to appreciate what pet ownership means and what joy we each individually get from owning a pet. And then I'm sure that all of us in the Wabash Valley remember, going to Basler's or going to local Kroger and only being able to pick up one steak or one pound of hamburger. I mean, in my lifetime, I've never experienced something like that, but I think that just, again, goes to show you the importance of meat, of farm animals in the area. Some fun facts that, I guess maybe fun isn't the right term, but some facts to share. 1 in 3 people get the wrong nutrition, and we continue to have a significant increase in protein demand globally. And so we've tried to meet that need and that demand by our innovation, productivity, and portfolio. And that's what I wanted to share with you next. We call it a IPP strategy, innovation, productivity, and portfolio. And that's really a focus on what we can bring to the farm animal and pet health supply chain, and how we can be creative and innovative, but also consistent and dependable. And really, both our Clinton facility and our Terre Haute facility hit on all of these. So as far as innovation, we've been able to lead the way with a significant productivity improvements here at both facilities, and then just continuing to be able to make safe and efficacious, quality-driven products day in and day out. And you'll see in a couple slides some of those specific products that we make as well. And then looping back to the Bayer acquisition and what it allowed us to do, and just to share with this group some growth that we're expecting to see overall across Elanco. Bayer increases our pipeline. So we're expecting to have about 5 new launches come out of our Bayer acquisition, which would essentially total 25 by 2024. And then, as I mentioned, with the Bayer acquisition, there was a significant pet health portfolio that we were able to obtain and purchase. And that essentially makes our portfolio 50% balanced between farm animal and pet health, which is significant for us because at one time we were very leveraged on the farm animal, and it just balances out our portfolio and keeps us more reliable and more consistent for our customers and for the company as a whole. Okay, so I'm going to transition to a little bit more product specifics around what we do. And it's going to focus mainly on animal health, sustainability, and then pet health. So what I wanted to call out here is just to educate everyone on some specific products that Clinton and Terre Haute either manufacture or package. And I mentioned earlier that whole diversification of our portfolio. And for many years, our Clinton facility was solely focused on farm animal. And so it was kind of like having all your eggs in one basket. And in the last 2 to 3 years, we've expanded into pet health, which is very exciting for the area. It's very exciting for our plant site and our employees. It also gives an opportunity for our employees to, a portion of our employees also farm locally, so they use some of our farm animal products. But I would say more of our employees have pets, and so then you're actually being able to use a product that you've touched and you manufactured. So again, that invested interest. But what I've tried to do here, this is a high level product portfolio across Elanco. The kind of red pink highlight is products that we make either at Clinton or at Terre Haute. And they're significant revenue drivers for Elanco. So I feel like I have talked on, and hopefully you've gleaned a bit of of what Elanco means, our why, and what it means to our employees and our community. I'm going to turn it over for a bit to Carrie to walk us through sustainability at Elanco. I think you're on mute still, Carrie.
Sorry.
There you go.
There's a coffee mug that apparently is selling like hotcakes that says you're on mute, because that's what we've been saying this whole time while navigating Zoom meetings. So if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and type them in and I'll address them as we go. Next slide, Casey. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what drives Elanco and what drives our employees to do what we do. Because it's been said that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And if your employees have a passion around what it is that they are putting out into the universe and in their communities, then you're going to have a very engaged workforce. And we do. And that is all centered around what we call Elanco's healthy purpose. And this is really just the framework of commitments and actions that we use to focus on the well-being and care of animals and the people who depend on them. Next slide. And it's really a One Health focus. So I don't know if you're familiar with One Health, but it's a concept that the health of animals, people, and the planet are all inextricably linked. And to prioritize one over the other would be like pulling a thread on a tapestry and it would all just unravel. So it's all about balance. And we believe that our role in this is to ensure the health of animals, to then ensure the health of people and the planet. Next slide. And Casey talked a little bit about local impact. So our employees are very, very service driven. And this slide shows you just a little bit of a snapshot of what our employees have contributed in terms of time and volunteerism in communities across the world. So we have a footprint in several countries outside of the US, and we also are actively engaged there with days of service and with regular volunteerism. You will find a lot of our employees, both on the farm and pet side, giving back to humane societies and agriculture related endeavors. So we're really involved. Next slide. And one thing that we're able to do, well, there's a lot of things, but a key thing that we are able to do now that we're separate from Lilly is set up our own foundation. So before, when we would give charitably, we did so through the Lilly Foundation, and they would just have an arm for Elanco. Well, now we have, as of last year, set up our own corporate foundation. And as we were talking about with COVID's really put a strain on a lot of people. And our foundation has been able to pledge more than $700,000 to food banks and organizations and communities across our footprint to help the food insecure access high quality protein. And as Casey had mentioned, one of those grants did go to Terre Haute Catholic Charities Food Bank. So really, really investing in our community. And we'll continue to do so. And if you want to learn more about the foundation, there's the website right there. And please visit and look at some of the stuff that we're up to. Next slide. Okay, so let's talk about the headquarters. Gary Dick gave a little bit of an upfront about the announcement that happened last December. It seems like it was a lifetime ago and just a minute ago all at the same time, because we're moving at such a fast pace and it's exciting, but there's a lot of work still to go. So I want to back up and just talk about the opportunities that were in front of Elanco when considering our next headquarters. So it wasn't a slam dunk that it was going to be in Indiana. We were looking at several different places, but after a rigorous analysis of our operations post Bayer acquisition, looking at multiple states, we decided that Indiana was the best place to make our home based on the consolidation of the future. So we're going to be building a collaborative fit for purpose campus that's going to have a smaller, smarter footprint. So both Bernice and Gary had talked a little bit about the changing needs of the workforce when it comes to emerging from COVID. And that it's not going to look the same. And employees' expectations may not be the same of a workspace. And we are in the fortunate position that we can take a look at that and at the trends when we're designing and building this new headquarters. So expect to see flexibility, expect to see this fit for purpose streamline. So it is based in West Indianapolis, and that's going to allow us to take a modern approach to work, building on learnings, as we talked about from COVID, that can flex for the future. So what is that going to look like? We envision it having 25% less office space, so a more consolidated footprint, and we have a dedicated build team that is planning right now. In terms of timelines, it's expected to be completed in about 2 to 3 years, removing any distraction from the core business. So this is ongoing. It's not going to be tomorrow. It takes a while, and we're just now starting this process. So over the next 10 years, we project that we're going to be adding more than 500 plus jobs to our base in Indiana of about 1,600 Indiana employees that we have currently. And that's going to include the, oh, excuse me, sorry. I was looking at the picture to see if we had anything on there that could show what our R&D facilities would look like, because that's going to be a part of this campus as well. So there's no specific announcement or specific plans for Vigo County, which I know you guys are all wondering about, because we are so early in the process. So talking a little bit about what this means for the state of Indiana and the city and local community within Indianapolis and West Indianapolis. So this is going to secure more than 1,600 high wage jobs in the state with future job growth for the company. And it solidifies Indiana as a center for ag bioscience. So a growing and attractive dynamic industry of which we are a part. So we're going to design this with the environment and the community of West Indianapolis in mind, with amenities that are going to be shared by our employees and the community that are going to increase the health of animals, people, and the planet. Again, we're taking a One Health approach to the building of this HQ. So it's going to include green space for people and pets, White River beautification, and additional approved access to downtown. So that's where we are today. We're just getting started. We're excited for it. Welcome your questions, and welcome to continue the conversation about the future of Elanco in West Indianapolis. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Carrie. So I think I'm getting up to our slotted time, but I wanted to make sure and share just a few very specific facts about both our Terre Haute site and our Clinton site. So our Terre Haute site, Holman kind of teased into it, and we have, it's a dedicated enzyme facility, and we have both finishing, filtration, which is recovery, and fermentation at that facility. We have approximately 20 employees, and it's about an 8-acre lot. And last year, our Shane Stuckey, who was the outgoing site head, actually took a operations role here at Clinton. And then one of our employees that led our capital planning here at Clinton moved down to the site head role in Terre Haute. So Alicia Barker is our current site head at Terre Haute, and she reports to me. And then the last piece are the main product that Terre Haute makes is called Hemicell, and specifically that's Hemicell XT, and they will ferment it and recover and then actually ship it up to Clinton, and we finish it in one of our facilities, one of our buildings at Clinton. So it's from start to finish all right here in the Wabash Valley, which is very exciting. And then Clinton specific, so our facility is fairly large, about 700 acres, 70 buildings, and we have approximately 380 employees across our facility, anywhere from our QC labs to our operating floors, engineers, and maintenance. And then we have a whole spectrum of products. And what I mentioned earlier was for many years, our facility was very animal health, farm animal focused. And we just started bringing on companion animal packaging, which is the picture. This is one of our companion animal packaging lines here. And Interceptor is one of the largest companion animal products that we package here at the site. And again, like I mentioned, Hemicell is finished. So started in Terre Haute and then finished here in Clinton. So we have, comparing to Terre Haute has 6 SKUs. Here at Clinton, we have 220. So a significant footprint within Elanco. And myself, Casey Schroeffel is the site lead, and I started, I came back to Clinton back in the February timeframe, so just about a year here back at the site. So very excited to be back in Terre Haute and back at the Clinton facility. And that wraps up our slide deck. So hopefully, you know, with all the changes and evolution of Elanco and of the Clinton facility, purchasing ChemGen and extending out to Terre Haute, that kind of gives the community and this audience a breadth of who we are and why we do what we do. So thank you very much for your attendance and your attention. I know presenting on Zoom is always a challenge because you can only feed from those that are sharing their videos. So I just appreciate everyone's attention. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks so much.
Casey, Carrie, thanks to both of you. I think we were really excited to hear from Elanco today because of what you talked about, Carrie, and the new headquarters in downtown Indianapolis. And I know you mentioned that there's not a lot of details that could be shared about how this might impact other areas of the state, but please keep us in mind. You know, we're very proud of Elanco and that presence here in both Clinton and Terre Haute. And we'd be very anxious to hear about any changes that might allow for our area as well.
Absolutely. And we love being a part of the community.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you both very much. I think that wraps up our presentation for today. So thank you all for joining us. And I also want to mention, Casey, thank you for the shout out for our Manufacturing Council. We really enjoyed that group, and I see several of the faces on this call today. So if you know of a local manufacturer that's not participating and might benefit from that type of connection that Casey talked about, send them our way. We'd be happy to talk to them and get them involved in the process. So thank you. All right, I want to thank all of our speakers today for the insight and information and their time. Today's program was really informative as we made the connections from national and statewide initiatives to things that are happening in terms of economic development right here in West Central Indiana. I'd also like to thank the Chamber team, especially Jessica Cox, who put a lot of hard work into this event. Planning a virtual event and conducting them has been a little bit challenging, but I think we've managed to pull it off quite well. Also a reminder that a recording of today's event has been happening and will be sent to you all via email for participating. So feel free to check that out and review some of the great presentations today. And as we all work to move past 2020 and into our new future, I do want to mention a couple of initiatives that we're working on. Our friends over at Thrive West Central have launched a coronavirus recovery and resiliency study. They currently have a survey in the field that they are seeking input on how exactly COVID-19 has impacted individuals and businesses throughout the area. This plan will help them be able to the survey will help them be able to put together a plan made possible by the Economic Development Administration, or EDA. So Thrive is currently in this process of collecting data, and you can find the link to that survey at thrivewestcentral.com, or we also have it on the Chamber's website in our news section. So please, if you haven't done so already, hop over to Thrive and be sure to complete their survey. They'd love to hear from you. And another resource we have that some of you might find useful is the West Central Indiana Business Hub. This is something that we've been working on throughout the course of the past year. It's a partnership between the Chamber and the West Central Indiana Small Business Development Center, as well as other entities that are involved in economic development and workforce development in our region. And it's a way for individuals and businesses to be able to access information all at once, especially as we navigate through COVID, and be able to get that information at your fingertips. There's more information available again on the Chamber's website or at westcentralbusinesshub.com. And while you're on the website, be sure to visit our events calendar, because we have more virtual events coming up, some smaller advocacy forums. We have a women's conference that we'll be announcing soon. So a lot of great events still to come from the Chamber. So be sure and check those out. Again, one more thanks to our sponsors for today. Terre Haute Savings Bank is our title sponsor and our supporting sponsor with ISU Scott College of Business. Thank you all for joining us today. Have a great day.